What's going on, everybody? My name is Anthony Cervino at the Real NFL Guru on Twitter, and this is the first episode of the Sports Betting Edge podcast presented by OddsJam. And you might know me from the FF Face-Off and other fantasy football relevant sites out there, but I am now creating content and doing some betting analysis here over at OddsJam. So I figure with the first episode, I'm going to talk about the differences between fantasy sports and sports betting. And let's start with fantasy sports. In fantasy sports, there are season-long leagues and daily fantasy leagues. Season-long leagues, you pay your league fee before the draft, and you get paid at the end of the season after the fantasy playoffs. So there's a gigantic gap in between when you lay your money and when you get a return if you win or if your team wins the championship. With daily fantasy sports, it's completely different. You're going to set your lineup or draft your team, and at the end of a game, if it's a single game slate, or at the end of the day, if it's a whole day slate, or in the case of the NFL, if you're betting a complete week, Thursday to Monday, at the end, you will get paid. Just like sports betting, if you are betting on a game or a prop, you're going to get paid when that ends. If you're doing a parlay, after all of the legs of the parlay are concluded, you will get paid if you win. So daily fantasy sports and sports betting are a lot more similar than season-long fantasy sports and sports betting. The biggest difference between, I would say, sports betting and DFS is the fact that with sports books, they offer odds on events, and the customers can place their wagers. At a sports book, you pick the event, you pick the type of bet, and how much you want to wager. DFS sites are different. DFS, you can do a head-to-head game, or you can do a tournament game. Either way, you are playing against other players. And usually with DFS, there is a predetermined prize pool if the league fills up. There's a predetermined buy-in as well. Whereas with sports betting, you have a lot more control of how much you're going to wager. Now, the tournaments in DFS, it's all about how many players are involved. These tournaments, there could be 10 people. It could also be, over 150,000 people involved. That's how you, I'm sure you've heard of the DraftKings Millie Maker. That's how you hit for that million. You need to be in those gigantic tournaments. With sports betting, you're not going to have that big payday, right? Like DFS, you can lay $3 and you can get lucky and then hit for $1 million. That doesn't happen with sports betting. So sports betting, you can profit, but you'll profit over a longer period of time. Meanwhile, with DFS, it's like a scratch off. It's like buying a Powerball ticket. You got to kind of get lucky and get that big payout. The advantages with sports betting over daily fantasy sports, there are a hell of a lot more markets to place wagers on. And, DFS sites like DraftKings, they're one of the bigger ones. They're the giants, along with FanDuel in the market. They have a little bit, right? Like, you can bet on esports and tennis. You can build lineups for golf and football. But with sports betting, you can literally find just about any market to place a wager on that the sports book decides to include. You could even go to a sports book and find what they call like entertainment props. At some spots, you can bet on political events. You can bet on, entertainment like TV events and things like that. There is so much more that you can do at a sports book. Again, you're not going to get that gigantic lottery ticket payday, but if you're right, you can be profitable. There are also a lot more sports betting sites to choose from. DFS has been around, it's legal just about everywhere, whereas with sports betting, it is not legal in every state in the United States. Now, there are offshore books, and every state that sports betting is legal, they have quite a few books to choose from. Some states, like New Jersey, where I'm at, have a lot more than others. But if sports betting is legal in your state, chances are you have at least 3 sports books at your disposal. Whereas with like DFS, there might be, off the top of my head, 8 to 10 platforms total. Or with sports books, I mean, there's 8 to 10 in like New Jersey, and I'm lowballing that. There's probably closer to like 15 to 20 plus that I have at my disposal. In fact, I have 10 sportsbook account apps on my phone. And there's a lot more that I can download here in the state of New Jersey. So a lot more variety. And why is variety good in sports betting? And this is where OddsJam and their terrific tools come in. Line shopping. Line shopping and getting the best odds and finding those discrepancies at the sports book is how you become a more profitable bettor over time. You have positive expected value bets to where, this is when math comes in. And, there are guys at OddsJam that can explain this a lot better, but I'm just like you guys. I'm a user. And since I've been using OddsJam, I've profited over $3,000 now in about 5 weeks using both arbitrage wagering and also positive expected value bets. And eventually, over time, math works itself out. The more bets you place, and if you're doing things correctly and following the process, you will see a positive profit at the end of the day. DFS is a lot different. I'm a seasoned fantasy player. I'm one of the top ranked rankers in the Fantasy Pros ECR. I struggle with DFS. It's a different ballgame. I'm a better dynasty player. I'm a better season-long player than I am a daily fantasy sports player. However, I make that quick cash sports betting. That's where I feel like I have a greater edge over the book now by using the tools at OddsJam. DFS, it's a lot different. There's a lot more luck involved. There's lineup building, there's ownership percentages, and there's a hell of a lot more sharks that play DFS that can kind of take over these GPP tournaments. The better DFS players, 9 times out of 10, are going to win. That's just how it is. With sports betting, you're going against a sports book. And if you are doing your research and if you're getting the positive value bets, you will become profitable over time. And I can't hammer this home enough. Now, I keep saying over time, there is more potential profit in sports betting. However, if you're looking for that big one-time payday, sure, you can hit for that milli maker, but the odds of hitting for that are tremendous. And there's also, again, with DFS over sports books, like you need to have bankroll when you're sports betting, right? With DFS, you can literally go into a day or a weekend with $20 and place a couple of lineups. And if you know what you're doing a little bit, you'll win some money. Maybe you'll get lucky, you'll win a lot of money. So you don't need a lot of bankroll with DFS. However, it does help. Sports books, sports betting, you need the bankroll. You need to be able to lay money, of course, to make money. Now, I'm not putting down fantasy. I'm not putting down DFS. I love it. There's a lot of excitement. You can get those big money scores. You can feel like you're part of the game. If you're playing against people you have the bragging rights. I have memories of playing fantasy football from 10, 15 years ago when I was a hell of a lot younger. I can remember certain games and certain leagues that I've won. They're long lasting. Of course, I have some betting memories, but the fantasy memories, they just hit home. There's a little bit more nostalgia involved for me. Meanwhile, with sports betting, let me tell you something. I'll take, let's say, the other night or the past 2 days, Sunday night football, Monday night football. the excitement, the adrenaline rush. Let me tell you something. It feels good to win a fantasy matchup, especially in the last minute. But when you lay some cash down on a boosted prop, right? Sunday night, it was the Chiefs Bills, and I had the Travis Kelce and Dawson Knox. They both score. I think the payout was like plus 500. When Travis Kelce had that, I think it was like a fourth quarter touchdown. Let me tell you something. The yelp that came out of me, the excitement, the adrenaline rush. I have goosebumps right now just talking about it. And how about last night? There was one play. I had 4 bets that cashed on one play. It was that Marquise Brown touchdown catch on the Monday Night Football game between the Baltimore Ravens and the Colts. Marquise Brown, longest reception. And then I had Marquise Brown and Mark Andrews to both have over 55.5 yards at a boosted parlay. I had Marquise Brown over 50.5 yards and a touchdown that hit. Marquise Brown over 4.5 receptions that hit. So one play, 4 bets cash. Let me tell you something. I was jumping around my bedroom. My wife was sleeping. She said, "What the hell is going on?" I said, "I just cashed 4 bets on this long Marquise Brown touchdown." There's really nothing like it. It's like one of the best rushes when you hit a big sports bet. Now, I do both. I play DFS. I do a lot of sports betting. When it comes to fantasy, there are DFS players who punt season-long leagues. Since I'm a better season-long player, a lot of my stake goes into season-long leagues, high-stakes leagues. Now, high-stakes season-long leagues, different ballgame. There are big-time tournaments. There are big-time stake leagues where you have to, lay down a lot of money. And if you win that league, you're cashing out big time at the end of the year. Big dog fantasy football at the FFPC. That's where I like to lay my money in fantasy football. I already know I'm not the greatest DFS player. It's been around for a while. I'm still trying to learn it, but that's just not my forte. So to get that daily rush, forget about daily rush, the constant rush throughout the day and the constant, up and down of winning, losing, winning more times than not, but that constant excitement, that constant adrenaline rush, that constant payout. That's where sports betting comes in. Not taking anything away from DFS. I love it. But most of my attention in terms of the daily grind goes to sports betting. And ever since I started using OddsJam, I'm going to go back here, whether it's their arbitrage tools, which shows you how to make risk-free returns, sports betting, absolutely risk-free, 100% works. Whether it is their positive EV tools, where it'll tell you the percentage of a return that you can get on a wager because they find the discrepancies and the values in the sports books. You don't have to do it anymore by hand. You don't have to put in that time. OddsJam and their tools, it does it for you. And all I do is follow the process. And then I take the knowledge that I have about the whether it's a prop or the game or whatever market. I take the knowledge I have and I apply it, and it heightens the probability that I believe this bet will hit or not hit. Now, do I place bets on markets I don't know? Absolutely. Because and again, go to the OddsJam blog, go to the OddsJam YouTube page, and find the videos and content on plus EV betting, and you'll see why you can pretty much place these positive expected value wagers. And even if you don't know the sport or the player, the numbers will work themselves out. And as long as you're placing the majority of positive EV bets, you will be profitable in the long run. Now, it's not going to happen overnight, and you have to be okay and get used to ebbs and flows. Like some days you're up, some days you're down. Next day, you'll be up again. Next day, you'll be up big, and then you'll go down big. But at the end of the week, at the end of the month, I have been profitable. I have seen profitable returns. And this is what's terrific about OddsJam. This is why I'm creating content for OddsJam, because I truly believe on what they have to offer to make you a more profitable sports bettor in the long run. I will still play DFS. I love fantasy sports. DFS is the closest thing you have to sports betting. But I personally believe you don't really have a big edge in DFS, whereas you do have a mathematical edge if you find the discrepancies over the sports book. DFS, as good as you can be, you are still playing against some of the best DFS players in the world when you're in these GPP tournaments, and they will always have the edge over you unless you're one of those top guys. Meanwhile, with sports books, you're playing against a book. And if you're doing your homework and you're making mathematically profitable bets, you have the edge over the book. And that's all that there is to it. My name is Anthony Cervino with the Sports Betting Edge podcast over here at oddsjam.com. I will be coming to you with some live betting, with some betting reactions and recaps, some NFL previews, and anything else in between. Until next time, again, Anthony Cervino at The Real NFL Guru. This has been the first episode of the Sports Betting Edge podcast presented by oddsjam.com.